Let me tell you why you're here.
I've seen things.
Oh my god.
Whoa, yeah! You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Guaranteed to jack you up.
Yo, what is going on, my dudes? It's your host, LamarStaysWeird, coming to you once again with another podcast. Now, I know it's been a minute. I'm sorry. I know I'm taking so much time in between, but unexpected things came up. I had some really good surprises to go do some stuff, and it just took me away from that. So I was enjoying spending time with family. I went to a Blink-182 concert. That was a very big surprise that I had no idea was going to happen. So I'm very thrilled. Blink-182 was my very first concert that I've ever been to. I haven't seen them in like 13 years, and I got to see them again thanks to a wonderful surprise by my girlfriend. I love you so much. I greatly appreciate that. That meant so much to me. You have no idea. I even cried at the concert, man. I had no idea that would happen. I didn't think those emotions would come out of me, but it was amazing, and I loved every minute of it. So I've just been spending time with everyone, just trying to take in all this love that's around me, man. That's all I'm trying to do. The love is out there. I'm just trying to embrace it as much as I can. Now, I am excited to talk about this movie today. Today, we're going to be talking about 2012's Looper. Now, this movie is directed and written by Rian Johnson. I know he's very infamous for Star Wars. I'm not going to get into that. But he also did the Knives Out series. Honestly, wonderful series. I cannot wait for the third one. Great movies. And this is another great one that he tackles, I think, almost fucking perfectly. I love this movie. I know it has its issues, and like any movie that deals with time travel, it's gonna have problems. If you think about it too much, you're gonna poke holes in it. That's every time movie ever. I don't think there's probably a single one out there where you can't do that. It's fucking time travel, dude. None of us knows how it works. We can only theorize how these things will go. And this is one of those movies I think it does a pretty good job. Of course, if you do think about it too long, you will run into that problem because of the type of time travel it is, and they do kind of leave the movie open-ended to really make you think, were the events of this film really important? But of course, I'm gonna get into a little bit of the facts, and then we're gonna move on from there. I know there's gonna be some inconsistencies with the editing of me taking my headphones off, here and there, but don't fucking worry about it. It's whatever. Now, this movie came out on September 28th, 2012. So if you happen to have that as your birthday, congratulations, you share it with a pretty dope movie. Now, this is a 2-hour sci-fi, action thriller, I guess you would say. And it's honestly great. It's worth the time. I think the pacing is very well done. It's sitting at a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb. And on Letterboxd, it's a 3.6 out of 5. Now, normally, I like to do this thing where I try to get reviews of, the good ones and the bad ones and put them here. But honestly, man, people went hard into this movie on Letterboxd. It was really difficult. I could not really find a short suite of either and put it on here because people were like writing fucking essays, and I'm not trying to read a whole fucking paragraph or like 3-4 paragraphs, literally what these people were doing to kind of convey, what were some people thinking about it, who thought the best and who thought the worst of it. I couldn't do it. And there were some jokes here and there that were like kind of funny in the short and sweet, but I wanted to get ones that kind of really came across at least like a little bit of critique, or it was more so like praising it in this sort of way. Short and sweet, couldn't get that. So many people were just all over the place. Now, I rated this movie, I think, about 4.5 stars. I really, really like it. It's a good movie. I love Bruce Willis. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. They're awesome guys, awesome movies and like filmographies. Really great stuff, but we'll get more into their stuff later. Everybody knows who they are, but I'm still gonna list some movies and stuff that they've been in. Now, the budget for this movie was $30 million. That's like roughly estimated, but it made $176.5 million. Amazing. That is awesome. I think we don't need a follow-up to this. I think this is great. The world is interesting. It's very cyberpunky, but it's not super flashy in your face cyberpunk. This is a little more about the stories, less about the world. You're more involved of the people. You know, there's elements listed in here because you do have the cyberpunk aspect, you do have the time travel aspect of it, and then you also have this thing where 10% of the population actually has telekinesis. Now, this movie is definitely inspired by Akira. Ryan Johnson has definitely said that. I'm a huge Akira fan. Poster is right up here from whenever they had their anniversary showing. So yeah, big Akira fan right here. I could see the resemblances here and there, and they did fantastic. I love how influential Akira just continues to be throughout the cyberpunk and sci-fi genre, and not even just limited to that. It's just in general when it comes to action or other anime, it's one of the most influential movies out there. Now, let me get into the cast so you guys know exactly who I'm talking about. Our lead is Joe, who is played by two different versions of himself. You got an older and a younger. Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing the younger, who's also been in Don John, Inception, The Dark Knight Rises, 10 Things I Hate About You. Bruce Willis playing the oldest, and honestly, this is going to be something I just throw in there. He was in Armageddon with like Ben Affleck. I can't remember what year that came out. That was the first movie I can remember that ever made me cry. That ending, dude, God. And then they had Aerosmith like having like, I guess like the main theme song of the movie, like I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Really sad shit, yo. But Bruce Willis is the GOAT. He is a fucking legend. Everybody definitely has to have some respect for Bruce Willis and all that he's done in film. He is incredible. And unfortunately, he's going through a terrible time right now. Probably not so terrible because he is surrounded by his family while he's going through this. Unfortunately, he is suffering from frontotemporal dementia. That is unfortunately the reason that he had to retire back in 2022 whenever they publicly announced his diagnosis. It's a terrible thing to see. I grew up watching so many movies with Bruce Willis. I have a lot of really high tier movies with him in it. And it's sad to see that that's a thing, but I love that him and Demi Moore are just doing nothing but spending time with their family. So he's surrounded by so much love, just taking it all in. And I hope he knows just how many people do love his movies and have made childhoods watching this guy, like just decades of watching this dude. And he's an incredible actor, and it's unfortunate what he's going through. I cannot imagine just having constant lapses in time and just forgetting people or forgetting things. I already do that, and it's something that's scary to me, and I can't imagine actually going through that, but I'm glad he has such a massive family that's just around him to support him through this time. And I know it has to be heartbreaking for them to kind of go through this, but they're toughing it out being there for him. I forget things all the time. I hate it. And I don't remember a lot of my childhood, but it turns out that's just trauma and repressed memories. I kind of come to figure that out over the last couple of years. So one of my fears is a constant thing for me, and it really sucks. It's something that bothers me to my core, but I'm not going to dog on that too much, but it is a thing, you know. Tell your family you love them, your friends, that random person that you probably see throughout your day, probably at work or school or somewhere else. Let them know, like, hey, you kind of make my day better sometimes, you know, like just the littlest things you do, or just simply just being there, you know. Tell somebody you appreciate them, you love them, because man, it sucks to just one day they can be gone, or just you forget them, and it really does suck, man. Oh, all right, I did not mean to get heavy right there. I really didn't expect it. That was kind of off script, but we're gonna move on now. Bruce Willis, of course, known for the Die Hard series, The Fifth Element, a great sci-fi movie. I fucking love The Fifth Element so fucking much. Sixth Sense, great fucking movie. It gave us Haley Joel Osment as well. And Pulp Fiction. This dude is in so many good movies, man. Bruce Willis had a wonderful fucking career. Now we have Sarah, who's played by Emily Blunt. Now she is in another time travel movie that is fucking awesome, and it's called Edge of Tomorrow, which I think we might actually be getting a sequel to. I'm not 100% sure, but there's been talks about it for like a while. I don't know where we're going yet, but I'm excited. That movie was fucking sick, bro. But she's from the Quiet Place series, Sicario, and The Devil Wears Prada. And then we have Seth, played by Paul Dano, who's probably one of the most whiny actors I know, but it's because he's good at it. He's good at just having that face that just kind of whimpers and cries and is in pain, and he conveys emotion so well. He does a really, really good job. He was in The Batman, the one with Robert Pattinson. He actually played the Riddler. There Will Be Blood, Swiss Army Man with Daniel Radcliffe, and Little Miss Sunshine. Then we have like one of our kind of mob boss, like hitman, kind of a tier guy, Abe. He's played by Jeff Daniels, which is a very interesting cast. That was something that kind of caught me off guard when I first watched this movie. I never knew the trailers or anything, just randomly saw it one day and watched it. But he's from Arachnophobia, great horror movie. It definitely lives up to the name, so if you're not big on spiders, do not fucking watch that movie. The Dumb and Dumber series, and he was in Steve Jobs. Sid, who is going to be the kid in this movie, who is played by Pierce Gagnon. He was in Tomorrowland, Wish I Was Here, and Rio 2. And an actress I honestly haven't seen in a while, but always had a crush on. She plays Susie in this movie. Her name is Piper Perabo. I think I'm saying that right. I really hope so. She was in Coyote Ugly and the Cheaper by the Dozen series. Had a crush on her from both of those movies, and honestly, it was nice seeing her again. But now that's our cast. So, time travel is invented in the year 2074, but is immediately made illegal. And shocker, I would very much expect that to actually happen if we ever did discover time travel. Automatically illegal. And the only people that have access to it that do actively use it are mob bosses in the future. Now, because of, implants and people being chipped and stuff like that, that type of cyberpunky deal, I guess it's probably some sort of way of identification in the future that everybody just has. It makes it hard to actually commit murder and get rid of bodies because everybody is so identifiable. So what do? They actually hire people in the past by sending one of their guys in that tier from the future to oversee this organization of people called loopers. Now, what they do, they kill the people that the mob bosses send in the past 30 years prior, so 2044. They kill them and dispose of the bodies in the past, so there's no traces of anything that went wrong, no foul play. And they're immediately paid because when these people are sent back, they're strapped with gold or silver, and that is their payment. And the whole hiring process of this, you get to do it, you get paid really fucking well. You kill them, you don't see their face or anything because they come bagged and strapped with the cash as well. You just blow them away as soon as you see them, go dispose of the body, you get paid, you go confirm it with the boss. There you go, you have a wonderful day, you go out, party, have fun. But there is one major stipulation in the contract whenever you are doing this job, is eventually, because time travel is illegal and mob bosses don't want to get caught, eventually what will happen is whenever they're done with you, like your contract, like they're done, they go and find your older self, send you back with a huge retirement payout, and you kill yourself right then and there. So if you're still alive, they will send you back to where you die. You kill yourself, you are aware, oh, they closed my contract, so I'm going to go live another 30 years. I have this countdown. I can now go do whatever I want. I'm retired. And honestly, that is such a baffling fucking concept. It's like, would you take that? I don't even know if I would take that. I mean, it's kind of hard. You get this massive payout where you don't have to do anything else for the rest of your life. And you're going to live 30 years. You have 30 years to do whatever the fuck you want. Now, that seems like a long time and a short time because I'm 27 right now. I can't imagine what to do with another 30 years if I was offered this at this very moment. That is such a dilemma. It's like, what would you want to do at that point? So please let me know what you guys would do, because honestly, I would take that time to kind of do, I think, anything and everything that I would want to do in that time. 30 years, fucking making it count. And you're going to live, and technically because of the time loop, you're going to make it from that date on. So whatever choices you're making right there, it's already predestined, and that's how it's going to go. You know what I mean? I hope you get what I mean. This is what they're saying whenever time travel becomes very convoluted. And I'm not even the biggest fan of time travel. I kind of don't like time travel stuff because it gets super predictable, or a lot of times it could just not get done right, and it causes you to have holes in the plot. And some people could do it right to where it's like, hey, don't look at that, but look at this. That's what this movie does exactly. They tell you right off the rip, we're not going to talk about the time travel shit because we're going to be here all day. And that takes place in a wonderful conversation that I love between older Joe and younger Joe. That concept is kind of set on the back burner. That's just a thing that happens here. The focus is on the people, the relationships that we have between everyone. Now, in case you're wondering and you haven't seen this movie, please go watch this movie. But with that stipulation that you do have to kill yourself, you can never let yourself run because it can cause like so much other shit, but you will just be hunted down and killed. You have to close your contract. And that's another thing that these people from the future oversee as well. It's like, hey, like we'll find you. So of course this is something that they're aware of because you are set to murder yourself. Yeah, I think it would be a murder. I mean, I don't know. It's like two different people. And not a spoiler alert because this is the whole premise of the movie. Our character, younger Joe, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, does get sent back his older self. And he has to kill him, but the older self has a mission and stops him from killing himself. And that's where this gets wild. There's just so many little concepts. It makes it tough. There's little stories just all together. The world building, I think, is good. It's simple. It's to the point. It tries to tell you, hey, this is real, but we're not going to focus on that too much. This is just a small piece of the story. The real story is these people, the relationships, the hardships, the dilemma that's going to happen of like the steering of your moral compass. Like, where's it going to go? So many different things. Now, this movie doesn't really pull any punches. So we're going to get into the spoilery sections from here on out. So what's really happening is out of nowhere, everything's normal. Everybody's doing their job. You get to see how the operation runs a little bit. But out of nowhere, a lot of contracts are starting to get closed. You start to see all these dudes celebrating their retirement. All of them killing their older selves. That's exactly what they're doing. They're following through on their contract. They get to go live the happy life that they want. But our character, Joe, you know, he does his job. He does it really well. He's a classic boots to ground type of guy. He has an older car. He dresses kind of oldie. You know, he wears button-ups, ties, jackets over it. He's a man of class. He has some taste. And he's even trying to learn French. So everything's normal until one day, just after all this constant partying and seeing all these people's contracts, it gets a little weird, you know, that they're ending. And then his friend, a good friend of his played by Paul Dano, you know, Seth, his contract gets closed, but he's so shocked that he got his older self. He kind of just let him go. He let him slip away because he was faced with that dilemma. Do you kill your older self? Like, would you want to do it? And so he goes looking for help because he just did a big fucking no-no. His other self is just running amok in the fucking city. And so he goes to Joe. It's like, hey, you got to help me. They're looking for me. I don't know what to do. I just need to be hidden. I need like a head start. And Joe is very reluctant. He tries to tell him, no, like I like the most I could do is give you a head start, take some cash, run, get on the train, leave this fucking place. Like just go. But the men already approach his place looking for him. He hid him in a safe and they already know, all right, it's going to like, we know you guys are friends. So you need to go see the boss. And Abe is able to talk to him and tells him, hey, we're going to cut the shit. I know he paid you a visit. I know he's your friend. I get it. And he doesn't even talk to him like any like type of way, like threatening him or something. He tells him right off the bat, we're not going to smash your fingers or anything. We're not going to torture you. I'm just going to talk. By the end of this conversation, you're just going to tell me what I want to know. We're going to get past this and move on. Now, Abe has technically been a good man to Joe. Joe was abandoned as a child. He didn't have any parental figures. So this kind of, that's kind of like the whole nature versus nurture nuclear family type of thing. He didn't have anything like that. But Abe came across him and saw he was a troubled boy. And it's like, you know what? I cleaned you up. I put a gun in your hand. I gave you a job. Now you're clean. You're cut. You know exactly what you're doing. You're leading a life. You're just doing your job. Everything's copacetic. So he tells him, I know you've been stashing all your money. I get it. You want to retire early. You just want to go off in your life. You want to go move to France. You're learning French and nothing's wrong with that. So just give up your friend or I just take half your stash. What would you want to do? Would you want to give up that much money for your friend? And that kind of bothers him because he does want to go live a different life. He does want to eventually get out of this, and understandable, not the greatest work around, but in a dystopian future. And we're already going through problems like this now where it's kind of hard to really provide for yourself. So you got to do what you got to do, man. And rough times are rough times, and it's getting rougher the further we go into the future. And we already see, just with him driving around, you see a lot of homeless people, and they don't even treat these people like people. It's sad. You just see him drive around kind of recklessly, like he doesn't care about these people. And then you see Seth at one point. He has a new bike, kind of being fancy with it. And, it's like a hover bike. And this homeless guy is just walking along, and he's just like, oh, like cool bike. He immediately pulls out the blunderbuss, which is their weapon. Cool fucking weapon for this movie, not gonna lie, really sick. But he tells him, walk around. Like, he's threatening him, like, yo, fucking walk around, or I'm just gonna put you down right then and there. And earlier we see a dude trying to steal, like a homeless guy trying to steal, just, I don't know, provide for himself. Looked like he just stole clothes. Immediately gets gunned down in the street. Nobody bats an eye. Everything is going normal. It's whatever. It's nothing. And so that's how they treat like these homeless people. They're nothing to them. So they don't care. Everybody's just for themselves. So you can't blame him because he's like, yo, I have a place. I have plans. I'm trying to just do for me. I can't give that up for somebody. They fucked up. I didn't. Their mistake shouldn't be mine. I shouldn't have to deal with it. So he sells out his friend. This is where one of the most shocking moments I think I've seen in any type of cyberpunk movie. This moment right here is wild, and I've never seen this concept in any other time travel movie. So if anybody's seen it, please let me know. But they have the younger version of Seth, and they start torturing him. Like, they start doing these things, and by this point, we're following the older version of Seth. We see the first thing they do is they cut and leave a scar. Like, it turns into a scar. So these things are happening in real time, but to the older person, these are already scars. This has already happened to him. And these memories are forming, and they go into all that in this movie. And they say, oh, be at this place, like all written in scars, like, oh, be at this place in this amount of time. And you start to see like a finger missing, another finger missing. At some point, you see a leg missing while he's just trying to cross the street. His tongue gone. He can't even speak. And he's starting to crawl. And then the moment he makes it to the place that they told him to go, he's trying to bang on the door. And at this point, he's already a quadriplegic. He's just like banging on it with nubs and just wailing because he can't properly scream or talk. And the moment they open the door, boom, gone. They got rid of the problem of the hit that got away. That is honestly a terrifying thing to see. It was creepy, but it was very well done in the effects. God, that is scary. It is gnarly. Like, what a concept. What a scene. Just all of that going down. And obviously this does bother Joe. And the very next hit, we already knew this was going to come. And he was judging Seth a lot for being really stupid and letting his older self get away. But we already know that's ironic because that's literally what's going to happen to him. But what's different about this one, whenever the older Joe is sent back, he's not tied up and he's not masked either. So that immediately throws him off. This one's running late. What's going on with that? So then he sees his older self and he's obviously shocked because normally you don't see yourself. Tries to go for the kill. Older self, he's smart. He turns around, uses all those gold bars on his back as like protection, able to get up, knock him out, run away. And now because the kill was never confirmed and hours have passed by then, the Gap Men, which is kind of the group, what they're called, they're going to go looking for Joe now because they figured out, all right, this has happened. And so Joe, he wants to do his job. He's trying to do good. He wants to kill his older self. But because he already got away, they're not going to think about that. The Gap Men are not concerned with that. It's like, yo, you fucked up. We're going to go find you. We're going to kill you. That's it. Like, we got to close this. This deal's done. And he's eventually able to meet up with his older self by doing the same thing, making scars, spelling out like a person who is a waitress that he's familiar with, he's friends with. And his older self does remember this. So they meet up at this diner that he used to go to all the time. And I love this diner scene between the older Joe and younger Joe. The conversations, it's two different people just bashing each other. And I love it. So to me, this is one of my favorite scenes in this movie because we find out he wants to save his future wife. And it's all because when he was at his lowest, from the drugs and all the bad shit that he was doing, She cleans him up. She takes care of him. She loves him and nurtures him back into a man who is worthy of love and who can put the past behind him and not do those bad things anymore. But because of the Rainmaker, who is the big bad in the future, closing all these loops, goes after them. And unfortunately, she is murdered in the process. And he wants to keep his future. He wants to keep his love. And the younger him is just being stubborn and hard-headed. Like, I don't care. That's not my life. That's your life, not my life. And of course, it's so funny seeing these two people who are the same person be completely different people. You are not your past. You can change, and you can not like yourself. I hate who I was 10 years ago, and I still have problems with it. I would probably have these same issues with talking to my younger self. And there's just low blows constantly being thrown. The younger Joe saying, you got a picture of your wife in the locket. All right, if I see it, I'll just walk away from her. She'll be safe. She'll never get harmed. You don't have to worry about that, which is a great argument because that is a good way to spare her. But the older him does not want to let that go because he believes he can change the future and they can still be together. Like the dialogue between them two, it is great. I feel like it is authentic to exactly what our older selves would say to our younger selves. Older him tells younger him that he's stupid, you're naive, like you don't get it, you're broken, and this woman puts you back together. She gets you back on your feet. That is what you need. Such a wonderful scene. If you haven't seen this movie, please go watch it. Just this scene alone is already great. But now going back to the Rainmaker. So the whole story behind this, there's this big bad in the future that comes to power, gets rid of all the other mob bosses, and starts closing loops. He starts going after all the retired ones and just closing them. Wants them all dead. That's obviously been very apparent because younger Joe has seen all these contracts close, and it's a little weird at the rapid pace that people are just dying. The older Bruce Willis is well aware of that. So his idea, and this whole other dilemma, I'm pretty sure I talked about in another video, I can't remember which one, he wants to go back and stop the Rainmaker from ever coming to power. And what does he do? He decides to find the baby him. He has numbers that could mean something. He has 3 possible targets, and they're all like babies that were born around this time. Now, it is wild that we actually get to see that older Joe, played by Bruce Willis, actually murders a kid. You don't see it happen, but he murders a child. He guns down a child. It is insane. Obviously, a good man willing to do bad things to keep the good that he had. I feel like a lot of people would do that. When it comes to killing a baby, I don't know. That's like a whole different thing. That's the whole argument of, would you go back and kill Hitler to keep him from, doing all the shit that he did? I don't even know if I could do that. That is insane. So that's what he wants to do. And Joe, after their scuffle in the diner, Joe is able to get a piece of the map. He knows where one of them is. Goes and finds them, hangs around a little bit, but he gets discovered. Emily Blunt is the caretaker of this child. And after some back and forths and definitely some tension, younger Joe tells her, I'm just here looking for a man that's going to be coming here. I want to stop this guy. And now Sid is the little kid that is on the list as well. And Joe tries to keep his distance, but he honestly starts to develop some sense of care for these people because he sees the hardships of this single mother going through. And he understands what this kid is going through because this kid tells Joe, my mother died in front of me when I was young, so Sarah is not my mom. And he relates to that because he didn't have his parents and he just had somebody else who cleaned him up, did stuff for him. He didn't have that motherly figure. And this is a smart kid. This kid did phenomenal in this movie. He is great actor. Like child stars are definitely like such a weird thing, like hit or misses. This was a great casting choice. This kid nailed his scenes. Now, Joe actually gets to talk to Sarah a little bit, and we find out she actually had Sid at a younger age, I think around 22, I remember her saying, but she wasn't ready for any of that. And so she gave him to her sister to take care of, and then he started to call her mom. But when she was killed in front of him, she went back and started to take care of him. So now he doesn't see Sarah, who is his birth mother, as his real mom. And that's going to be an important fact later. Everybody can predict this kid is the Rainmaker. This kid has telekinesis because Sarah does have telekinesis, which 10% of the population does have it, probably due to some fallout, but it's not very powerful. A lot of people are not powerful with it. The most they can do is do quarters and stuff. But Joe is actually impressed when he sees her actually able to levitate a lighter pretty effortlessly and just like spinning it around. So that got passed down to Sid, who now we understand how the Rainmaker came to take over all these families, because Sid starts to throw a tantrum when him and Sarah are having a bit of an argument. And we see how powerful he is. That house is rumbling and shaking, and Sarah is terrified of this kid. She literally backs away from him, never turning her back to him while he's screaming and having this outburst. And she's able to run to her room and hide it in a safe, like a giant, like safe, like old-timey safe. Close it, lock herself in, and just wait out the tantrum. And one of those Gatmen starts searching the area to try to look for Joe. So one of them stops by, they start asking Sarah a bunch of questions, and they're in the house and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And while they are talking, Sid is on the steps and actually kind of scares the Gatman. So he pulls out a gun and just pointing it at him, but it is immediately like, oh, you know, just a kid, you know, not gonna harm the kid. But Sid actually gets startled and starts to fall down the steps. And this is all happening in slow motion. And Joe's been hiding around, so he starts to come in because he wants to be there to protect this family. He's already walked in. You would think Sarah is going to protect Sid from falling down those steps to not hurt himself. But no, we actually see Sid just falls and he just gets angry and just starts screaming. And this is all silent. You don't hear any of the dialogue or anything. It's in slow motion. It's being scored, has a nice little score over it. And you would think she's running to him, but she's not. She's actually running to Joe to tackle him out the door. And we see everything in the house just start to lift. Even the Gatman just gets lifted. And then the moment it goes pure silent, I love this part. We just see the guy's body just lift up, and you start to see just blood just erupting from like in front of him and the back of him. And he's just like exploding, like slow motion, just being bled. And the whole house, you know, once it goes back to the regular pace, the whole house just fucking explodes, like shit gets thrown everywhere. And then that's when Joe sees, oh fuck, this is the Rainmaker. He is insanely fucking powerful. So now he wants to get rid of the kid because he sees how big of a threat he is. So now he kind of flipped teams. But because he just saw that go down, and the way the memories work, they're forming the new memories. Older Joe, when he was in the process of gonna kill another kid, he now knows, I know where the Rainmaker is. I know which kid it is. And the younger Joe actually starts to go hunt down the kid, but he sees that this child covered in blood, just, you know, kneeling down, hiding. He sees that, you know, the tears and stuff, like this is just a lonely kid that just needs to be put on the right path. He cannot bring himself to kill this kid. And so now he has to protect them from the older him. The older Joe actually cleared out their base because they did capture him while he was going for the second child. They did capture him, and he just started murdering everyone there, man. He got everyone, all the floor level guys, and then Abe, the main guy, got rid of all of them. So the whole gang's gone. So now the last thing he needs to do is go find the Rainmaker and kill him. And whenever he's there to actually do it, and this is where the story starts to come in, and it becomes this whole other thing, because what happened, the lore behind the Rainmaker is that the Rainmaker probably has like this prosthetic jaw, and he did see his mother get killed in front of him. So that led to the life of this man just hating loopers and all this other stuff. And after this long process of, you know, people getting killed and like this chasing scene and all this stuff between the older Joe and the family and younger Joe, older Joe actually catches up to Sid and he goes to shoot him. And he just grazes his cheek right here. So along the jaw, probably where that whole theory started. And maybe he does have to get it done, but it doesn't look that bad. And Sarah steps in front of him to where he can't do another shot. And the older Joe sounds like, you got to move, while Sid is trying to get away. So as younger Joe kind of sees this play out in his head, that older Joe kills Sarah. Sid watches the whole thing, you know, from the cornfield, and he escapes, hops on a train, and he's alone. He's angry. He's afraid. And this is what's going to happen. He's going to see that little prophecy, those little steps that led to him being the Rainmaker still happen. So the only thing that he can think of is turning his blunderbuss on himself, because it can't shoot that far and he's still a ways away. So he just decides, all right, I can stop myself from killing that kid. So he does. He pulls the trigger. Boom. He changes it. He changes the course of all of that. And then older Joe just realizes what happened. It's like, oh. And then he disappears. He just vanishes. Now, there are still some theories that if this even changed anything at all, if he would still become the Rainmaker. And it's obviously left open-ended because they wanted people to theorize this stuff to where you don't know what's going to happen. But it becomes like this whole paradox of really trying to get into how the continuity works and all that stuff, like just consistency. Because we already know that this happened. We already know Sid did see his mother, who he thought was his birth mother, get killed, and that bothers him. And you see he's not acting like a normal child. This kid is emotionally damaged and traumatized from seeing that. So he's already seen his mother get killed in front of him. And now he's already been shot in the face and like has this cut right here that could be like, you know, an over exaggerated part of his story, you know, with the prosthetic jaw and stuff. Maybe, I don't know, but it doesn't look that bad. Now, those two things already happened, and those are the two things we know about his lore. So we don't know if he really stopped anything at all, which is very unfortunate after this journey we just been on. But hopefully things can change, because he will have a motherly figure right there to love him and help guide him, because she loves that kid and she wants to be there for him. But there's no telling if later down the road he will actually see her die, or it's already happened. He's already set on his path. So it gets pretty gnarly, man. This is such a good movie. I think it hits the emotional beats pretty well. It makes you question, you know, what would you do? I think it requires a lot of self-reflection, because you got to think about it. Your younger self, you wouldn't imagine yourself doing this, but this is a different person. You're looking at this person who is willing to do anything to save the love of their life. But yet you can't fathom yourself doing that, because he's not in love. He's not dating anyone or anything. I mean, yeah, him and Sarah hook up. All right, whatever, no big deal. But he doesn't feel that. And it's funny because he was set on this path by Abe. Abe was already talking to him whenever they first interviewed him, trying to figure out with Seth. He tells him, oh, you've been learning like French, you know, you want to go to France. And he says, I'm from the future. You should go to China. You're going to want to go to China. And they have like this back and forth, like, no, I want to go to France. It's like, you're going to China. You're going to want to go to China. And don't know what that's about or why, but younger Joe eventually does take his advice. And that's where older Joe meets his wife in China. And he does end up learning Mandarin and doesn't regret the fact that he spent all this time learning French, which you see him doing in the beginning of the movie, and trying to practice it with the chick at the diner. I'm telling you, man, that whole diner scene, them two just having that talk and how they're just taking jabs at each other and then physically fighting later, it's insane. And honestly, and I haven't even talked about this point, they did a great job on the prosthetics of changing Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Because when I first watched this, I could not tell that was even him. Even when I watched this, I know it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I do not see Joseph Gordon-Levitt. They did a great job on trying to make him look like Bruce Willis, a younger version of Bruce Willis. Phenomenal. I know it's weird, but it's because everyone knows what Joseph Gordon-Levitt looks like. He's a very handsome dude. He's a fucking cute guy. And seeing him like this, it's like, wow, that's weird. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt really went out of his way. He talked about how he would watch Bruce Willis movies on repeat to get his dialect down, you know, how he speaks, his mannerisms, which he did phenomenal according to Bruce Willis, because Bruce Willis, while talking to him and interacting with him throughout this movie, he noticed his own mannerisms in him. It's like, fuck, I do that. Like, that's wild. I love how committed he was to that, and they did a great job. So I know some people were talking about, you know, just how he looks. It's a little like off-putting or something. I don't think so. I think he's believable. He wouldn't have been my first pick. I don't even know anybody that could actually look like a younger Bruce Willis to play a younger Bruce Willis. No idea. I feel like nowadays, if this movie was made, they would only try to de-age him and it would look fucking terrible. But using practical effects and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, just a great actor, they did phenomenal. They did great. They hit it on the mark. And now I did find this article because I was actually curious to how many types of time travel there are, because this is just one of those movies, and there's time travel's been done so many times in sci-fi and like other stuff. So doing my research for this movie, I found that there are 8 different types of time travel. We have type 1, which is called anything goes. Characters travel back and forth within their historical timeline. This is more as a fantasy, like science fantasy, than it is like science fiction or based on science. It's more so you get to have fun, just like in Back to the Future, Bill and Ted, Hot Tub Time Machine. Like, they don't try to dive into too much. It's like, oh yeah, it's just magical. You know, you just get to do these things. And usually you do have what they call a MacGuffin. So it's just like this random object that enables you to do this thing. Then we have type 2, which is the branched reality. And in this one, changes to the past don't rewrite history. They just split into an alternate timeline. So the changes made, so it doesn't get rid of the timeline and it doesn't change it. I think the most popular one nowadays that you could probably think of, and as listed in this article, is the MCU in Endgame. So like how they did it. And then you have time dilation. Now this one's definitely different. This is type 3. So this one is when somebody is traveling in outer space and they're going through time at a different pace than everyone else on said planet. So you can only go forward. There's no going back. And my favorite example of this one would have to be Interstellar, also as listed in this article. Interstellar does a great job of the time dilation. You get to see these people go to different planets and they're aging so differently. It is Interstellar, phenomenal fucking movie, man. Great example of time dilation. And then you have type 4, which is this always happened. That means all of time, everything is predestined. It's all a loop, which means the very act of time travel set the events of the story in motion, which this movie is definitely an example of. So Looper is definitely one of them. Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban, the Terminator series, and then a pretty mind-fucked one is the Butterfly Effect, which if you've never seen, that is a movie I'm going to cover, but man, is that movie triggering as hell. And they do this pretty perfectly. And then there's type 5, which is seeing the future. And this is, of course, after a character sees their fate and they decide to change it or just deal with it. And a great example of that is Minority Report, which is another great sci-fi action movie that I fucking love. That movie does that very well, where these people see these things that are predestined and they want to change it. And then you have Avengers Infinity War, where you actually got to see Doctor Strange look at all these different timelines and decide to change and go the right path. Now, this one's pretty funny. It's very short and sweet. This is type 6, which is going to be the time loop, famously done by Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. But then there's another really good example that is more recent and I think is very fun. The Happy Death Day series and Edge of Tomorrow. That whole movie was just about the loops and how they worked. I love that one a lot. That one was really good. And like I said earlier, we might be getting a sequel to that. I kind of hope so. And then we have type 7, which is the unstuck mind. A really good example of this one is X-Men Days of Futures Past. So this is where your consciousness is transferred from one point of your life to another point. So either your older self or your younger self, like your mind and all those memories are going from one to another. And then type 8 would be unstuck body. And this is where a character's body or an object becomes detached from the timeline in their respective space. So things become inverted or they become older or younger. So it's kind of like that scene in Doctor Strange where he was messing with the time stone and he had the apple where it was transitioning from being eaten and then being whole, and he was doing that back and forth. And then the same thing in Endgame where we got to see Scott Lang, Ant-Man, he was actually being aged up, aged down, and then being regularly aged. So those are the examples of that. And that is all 8 different types of time travel. If you guys have a favorite one, I would love to know, or a movie that does time travel. Which one do you think it is? And I want to know why you like it. But like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of time travel, and I think it's because it can get a little worn out sometimes, and it's all about how you tell your story and how it works. You got to do it right for it to really count and make it great. Like I said, this movie did a phenomenal job. It is worth a watch. I know it's 2 hours. Bear with me. It's good, and especially if you like the sci-fi genre or just the cyberpunk genre itself, this is a really good one. But like I said, it doesn't focus too much on all of that. So maybe try to go in it with that in mind, that it is not just focused on the cyberpunk stuff or the time travel stuff. It is just there in the back. It's just, hey, this is part of the story, don't forget, but this isn't the main focus. The main focus is these people, the relationships between them, and just the decisions and the consequences of them. But I hope I did a good job trying to explain this movie and some of the stuff that happened in it. I really, really like this movie. I really, really want you guys to watch it as well if you haven't. But other than that, I kind of hope you enjoyed it. But man, it becomes tough. That is such a tough question if you would do that to yourself. If I could have a conversation with my younger self, man, dude, if we were all allowed that, that'd be one hell of a therapy session. That would be something. If we ever have time travel, I would love to use it just for that. I would just want to talk to my younger self, or maybe even my older self, and just be like, yo, God, the things we've been through or the things we've done, like, Jesus, man, like those things, it would be a very, very interesting conversation. I feel like it's a conversation a lot of people probably would not want to have, just because it would get heavy, dude. Or if not, it would be fucking static, like these guys, duking it out here and there. But alrighty, I'm going to end it there. But before we go, you guys know I got to give you a cookie's fortune, man. But I got one. Be humble, but also be proud of yourself at the same time. Keep yourself in check. Love yourself, man. But don't love yourself too much where you can't love others. Do with that what you will, ladies and gentlemen. But until next time, be excellent, be kind, subscribe to the channel.